Welcome back to the channel. The month of February was great for working on Squirrel Game. I hope the month was great for everyone else. This devlog is going to pick up right where the last one left off, making the Stone Golem boss fight. So let's get right into it. I now have to finish the basic AI for the Stone Golem, which I am creating a state machine right in the code for the Stone Golem. This way I can tell the Golem to switch to a different attack or action without having to worry about it continuing to perform the old action. With the basic AI working and playing the correct animations when I need it to, I can now add the functionality for each action, starting with the arm rocket attack. The arm rocket attack is actually pretty simple because all I have to do is create a new scene for the actual rocket and have that scene be instanced at a certain point in the animation. The next attack to make is the laser attack, which was pretty fun animating the laser and getting it to look good, but now the functionality will probably be a pain to get to work. Getting the laser attack to work and affect the player like I wanted it to was a lot easier than I thought, and now I need to draw the wind gust for the slam attack that I coded off camera with the other melee attack. I just want the wind gust to be a simple wind animation that tells the player around where the hitbox is for the slam attack, because without the wind gust, it looks like the only area that is a danger is right underneath the Stone Golem. With all of the attacks made, and after some testing of the boss fight, I decided to add an angry state after the boss is under 7 health that increases its movement speed and increases the attack speed. My hope is that before the angry stage, the players learn the different attacks and then they have to take what they learned and dodge all the attacks when they are coming at them faster in the angry stage. Again, after some testing, an idea I had earlier in development of the Stone Golem resurfaced. Currently, all the attacks have the same chance of happening depending on the different conditions, but I want the more dangerous attacks to happen less often. I plan on doing this with 2 random number generators that represent 2 6-sided dice, and using my knowledge of probability curves, each attack will either be assigned 1 or 2 numbers depending on how often I want the attack to happen. Stone Golem is now finished with all its attacks done and working. I feel pretty proud of my first boss fight, even though it is a little simple, but I thought it was okay because it is the first boss fight in the game. Now that the Stone Golem is all finished up, I can now move on to the next section of the devlog. Right off the bat, I want to talk about some updated visuals, the first one being the new sprite sheet for the player. Here's a quick comparison with the old one, which it's not too different, but it adds some detail, makes it a little darker, and makes it a little less cartoony. Here's the original sprite sheet in game. And then here's the new sprite sheet in the game. Next thing that was updated was the Hawk enemy sprite sheet, which it now looks like an eagle, so I might just consider it an eagle now. But this new sprite sheet was drawn by the same person that drew the new grass terrain sprite sheet, Jan. The last things that were updated is now the fox enemy has a death animation, so it does not just disappear as soon as it dies. And the other thing is the new falling animation for the player. Now to get to the big things for this section of the devlog. The first thing is the player checkpoints for when the player ends up dying so they don't respawn super far away from where they died. I first got to draw the different animations for it, so let's do that. Now to make the functioning checkpoint, which I feel will be a little difficult, but we'll see. The checkpoints work perfectly. The player spawns where it needs to, and the animations change for all the different flags when the checkpoint is changed. I like it a lot. Getting the code to work was not as hard as I thought, but I did have to learn how to use groups in Godot, which is a lot different than in Python language. Now I think it is a good idea to make an enemy spawning altar that can be changed on the go to spawn different enemies at different time intervals, but first I must draw the actual altar. Now coding the altar will be quite simple because I can use similar code I used for the spike and mushroom tile maps for instancing scenes as tiles of a tile map, but only make it instance an enemy at once every time interval. To add some speculation, the blue stone on top of the altar is magical and is what is spawning the enemies, and it also is what is dripping the liquid onto the base of the altar. The enemy spawn altar is finished and it works very well. Last minute I added a visibility notifier so the altar won't spawn enemies while it is off screen, just so the game doesn't end up overworking and so the player doesn't show up and there's 100 foxes running around. Now we can get to the last section of the devlog about the swimming mechanic. First up, I need to create the actual swimming ability, which the player won't have when they first encounter the lake area, so they need to be careful around the deep water. After creating the swimming ability, I did a bunch off camera because I forgot to record, but the things I did have a lot of impact on the game. If it isn't already obvious, I changed the in-water effect to look a lot better, and I created the player air mount and the drowning mechanic. The time you have underwater changes depending on if you have the swimming ability obtained or not. If the player can't swim yet, the player can only breathe for 10 seconds underwater, and if the player can swim, they can breathe underwater for 20 seconds. Once the player loses all their air while underwater, their lives will start ticking down until the player leaves the water or drowns. That is all I had for this devlog. Thank you all for watching and for all the support. As always, this is RBC Mr. Rhodes, signing out for now.